they've frozen income tax thresholds. Nobody's surprised about that. It's going to bring in a fair old whack of money. The important thing here is that basically they're not putting the headline rates of income tax up. They haven't done. Nobody's done that in quite a long time. So what they do is, and this is a wheeze that was brought in by the last government, was to freeze the thresholds at which people get tipped into higher bands. So when you have income tax structured in such a way, when inflation rises, people get pay rises. And as they get pay rises, they basically, if those bands aren't linked to inflation, people get tipped into higher income tax brackets and therefore pay more tax.
Fiscal drag, right? Fiscal drag. This is what is known as fiscal drag, yeah.
Fiscal drag, yeah. And I like to think that fiscal drag affects more than just income tax. And we're going to look at some of that as well, because there's some interesting areas where it's happening in other places. Because it's one of those kind of canny tricks that the government can play, because it doesn't look like you're raising tax. You're just pinning something down so that inflation does its duty of tipping more people into liability, effectively. It's going to raise a big whack of money. It's going to tip, I think the numbers were, it's going to tip about 800,000 people into paying some form of income tax that they weren't paying before. It's going to tip more than 900,000 people into the higher rate tax band by the end of the parliament. So these are not trifling numbers. People's taxes are going to be going up as a result of this decision. I personally really dislike it. I understand why they do it, but I think everybody needs to be very clear about why it's happening. Basically, my kind of fundamental view of it, really.
Well, are we boiling a frog here, Ed? Is that it? They're just turning the temperature up on us so that we barely notice, but actually, before long, there'll be bubbles over our head. Is that?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think?
I think what's really important here is that it makes a fundamental change to the nature of our tax system, because instead of just changing the tax rate, so taking 20% income tax to 22% or whatever it was that was notionally suggested before things started, what you're doing in a way that people don't notice. So they get a pay rise, but the pay rise just looks a bit smaller than it might have ostensibly looked had the fiscal drag not been taken place. So it's much more harder to discern that in your pay packet, but your pay rise, if you do get tipped into a higher bracket because of your pay rise, just isn't as good as it might have been, basically. And it's less of a complaint thing.